Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is July 29th, and today we're going to take a look at this heat wave that's engulfed much of the Pacific Northwest. Seattle going for 6 straight days of 90 plus temperatures. That would be an all-time record high. Looking at the visible satellite imagery here, you can see the Moose Fire continues to burn through Idaho. We've got some diffuse smoke from the California fire still around, kind of enhancing our sunsets across the area here. And you can see we've got a complex of thunderstorms overnight and this morning through British Columbia. May have kicked off some forest fires here. We'll continue to monitor that for the next couple of days. You can see the low clouds up against the Oregon and Washington coastline here, and you will get some relief along the waterways, especially the Washington, Oregon coast, Vancouver Island coastline, as well as the eastern Washington, Oregon valleys continue to bake, and the Willamette Valley and Puget Sound are downright hot as well. So jumping into things here, you can see we have the excessive heat warning, Puget Sound, Willamette Valley, Southern Oregon, Eastern Washington, Oregon, excessive heat, actually heat advisory for elsewhere across the region. You can see the monsoon season continues to go down here in southwest portions of the USA. Spokane, we're talking about fire danger over there. You know, it's going to get a little bit breezy here, and the relative humidity will be low. Watch out for those grass fires. All it takes is a spark. They've got their fire weather concerns up over there. And as we cool off a little bit Monday, we're going to pick that wind up a little bit there too, which can enhance that fire activity. Seattle yesterday, 94 degrees, 3 degrees off the all-time record high of the day of 97, and 103 in 2009. That was the all-time record high for SeaTac for almost 12 years. We're not going to get there as we go through the day today. We're probably going to go mid 90s again, maybe 96, I'm thinking. And the average high for this time of year is 79. And the 2009 96 on July 30th, I don't think we're going to get there either, but we might get close to tying that record here as we go on into Saturday. And then Sunday, one more warm day, probably 90 plus for Seattle before we start our cool down next week, which we'll take a look at here in a moment. This is Portland, back-to-back 96-degree days. The average high for this time of year is 84. They did set an all-time daily record high, 102, back on Tuesday, July 26th. And they're not going to get towards these record highs coming up here of 106 for 2009 during that extreme heat wave. But it is going to be downright warm here for the next 3 days across the Portland area also before they start to see some relief. This is Quilly, Washington, 78 degrees. Nice, glorious weather out there. Morning clouds breaking out to some afternoon sunshine. The average high for this time of year is 69. Now this is looking at the smoke here. It's the HER 3KM high resolution. You see the smoke from the California fires. It's kind of diffuse and just kind of highlighting our sunsets at this point. But if we put this into motion, you can kind of see it's got this fire here going through British Columbia. So it looks like maybe we're starting to kick off that fire season here as the Moose Fire continues to burn out here through Idaho as well. So we'll continue to watch that and see what kind of fires that complex of storms that moved through last night and this morning is developing. Now checking out the NAM3KM, this is for today. You can see Seattle warms up towards 91. That would give 4 days in a row of 90-degree temperatures. Then Saturday would be 5 and Sunday would be 6. Willamette Valley probably into the upper 90s today. And some nice relief here along the Washington-Oregon coast as the inland areas just continue to bake. Columbia Basin, look at that. And you can see that heat travel up into the valleys in the East Cascades, Okanagan River Valley, for example. So heads up for that. I'm sure you're quite aware of it if you're out in those areas. Now, as we go through tomorrow, you'll notice the same thing. Puget Sound and Willamette Valley warm up nicely. You can see Seattle, another 90-degree day coming up here. The NAM's been running kind of cool, so this is probably going to be mid-90s for Seattle and upper 90s for Portland here. And again, nice relief along the coastlines. As we go into Sunday here too, again, upper 80s showing here, but that's going to equal low 90s in actuality. So then we're going to get finally some marine push here as we go on in through Monday. We'll take a look at some of those temperatures here in a moment. Now let's just look at the temperatures at 850 millibars, 5,000 feet. You can see how this thermal trough has extended these really warm temperatures all the way out of the Pacific Ocean, all the way up the West Coast. That's what's keeping, that warm air is what's keeping us so warm. It's not allowing us to cool off at nighttime as we keep this dome of hot air over the region. Now go through Saturday, you can see the dome doesn't really go anywhere, but we are starting to bring some marine air a little bit closer to the West Coast here. You notice that's relaxed a bit. That heat is not so far off the coastline here. And as we go on in through Sunday, you can kind of see that marine air start to creep in here from the southwest. It's eventually going to make its way in here as we go on in through Sunday night into Monday. And we might start to introduce some convection around the area, especially the Oregon Cascades as well. We'll take a look at that here in a moment. Here's the European. This is more of a long-range look at things here. You can see this ridge still in place, or relative ridge. It's kind of flattening out at this point here, but we still have this very weak disturbance out here that's going to kind of hang off the coast long enough to give us another warm day Sunday before this troughing starts to take over, especially as we go through midweek. Check this out. Pretty direct hit from this trough. Might bring us some precipitation during one of our driest points of the year here. So we'll continue to monitor this, and we'll look at some of those precipitation totals here coming up in a moment. Now, checking out the GFS, this is the ensemble mean. This is hot off the press from this morning. Let's update this and make sure it's the most accurate information. And you can see that system kind of hanging out here. The GFS kicked this through a little bit quicker in previous runs, and it's since lined up with the European. No surprise there. And that gives us another very warm day on Sunday before finally we get this marine influence rolling in through here through Monday and on into mid next week. You can see the troughing start to develop here by Monday afternoon. So the heat is coming to an end. We just have to get through these next 3 days. So you can see this high pressure kind of building out over the Pacific Ocean here. That's going to bring us some relief. Now you can see Tri-Cities, the European, just calling for some really excessive temperatures, then somewhat of a cool down. I mean, it's still going to be warm on Monday and still up into the 90s here as we go through midweek. But a definite noticeable cool down is on the way through midweek coming up here. Here's the European showing 1, 2, 3 more. That would bring 6 in a row for Seattle. And this looks like a really solid bet at this point. I'm thinking probably 80+% chance that we break the all-time duration here, 90+ degree days, 6 days in a row for SeaTac. We've already got 3 Friday, Saturday, Sunday is looking very likely we're going to break that record. But you can see the cool down coming up here as we go through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as we drop back down into the 70s. It's going to be really nice. And you might even have to wear a little bit of a windbreaker out there if you're already getting used to these 90-degree days coming up. So this is the GFS also now showing, remember in previous runs, it was showing something down in the lower 80s and maybe not getting up to 90, but it's since gone towards what the European is saying. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, above 90 degrees for SeaTac, very likely. But as you can see, great model agreement here for on in through early and later next week here as we drop these temperatures way back down and maybe even a little bit below normal at times here through midweek. So enjoy that if you're tired of the heat, because that relief is coming. So checking out the timing of the precipitation coming up here. There might get some convection through places like Oregon and eastern BC coming up here through early to mid next week. But then we've got this system dropping down. And look at this, a fairly robust frontal system sliding through BC and western Washington here on in through Wednesday and Thursday potentially. So we'll monitor this system as it rolls through here. This is a very dry time of the year, and this would be highly unusual to get measurable precipitation at this time of the year for the Pacific Northwest. So we'll continue to monitor that. That'll be the next weather story here coming up through next week as we go out of the heat and possibly into some below average temperatures with even a frontal system sliding through here. You can even see a little bit of a convergence zone signature here as we go through August 4th. And that clears out. And that the good news about that is that August 6th is when Seafair Weekend happens here in Seattle. And that would mean a much better day versus having to rain out here on August 6th, which it looked like some previous runs were kind of showing some precipitation around the 6th. But anyway, nothing set in stone yet. We're looking pretty far out in fantasy land at this point. But that looks like a pretty robust system moving through there. So I'm going to start paying attention to that. That'll be the next weather maker here across Pacific Northwest. As you can see, this trough dropping down and bringing some precipitation across British Columbia. Maybe it'll help squelch any fires that are going into British Columbia at this point of the year too. As you saw that complex of thunderstorms moving through last night, could have easily started some forest fires across the area there. Still doing all right through Oregon and Washington, but a lot of times our fire season really doesn't kick into high gear until we get into August and even September. Sometimes the fire season gets going pretty good at that stage also. So yeah, you guys can see the visible satellite here, those thunderstorms. That's what might cause some of those forest fires through BC. So we'll continue to monitor that and see what kind of fires that kicks off. You see the visible satellite. You want to cool down, get out to the coastline, or some portions of the northern Puget Sound right along the water are doing pretty good for this heat wave as well. But once you start getting down towards Seattle south, you're getting pretty warm. And like some people have been mentioning too, we've got some humidity. We've got some moisture trapped at the surface, and it can kind of keep us from cooling down overnight, and it kind of keeps things more muggy around the region, keeps that heat index a little bit higher than the temperatures. I noticed at my house here next to the Puget Sound yesterday, some of the temperatures were around 90, but the heat index at my house was 93. It's that extra humidity or moisture in the atmosphere. So anyway, hope you guys are enjoying this heat wave. I mean, for the heat lovers, enjoy it while it's here, because we're definitely cooling down through next week too. And we'll continue to monitor that system. It looks like it might swing down through mid and later next week, and see if it will actually bring some measurable precipitation to the area. Maybe we'll get some thunderstorms out of it. We'll continue to monitor that. And yeah, so click like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.